Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We are going to be working on pelvic mobility and core and pelvic strength associated with having to move your hips, move the pelvis in relation to what is happening with the boat. So engaging muscles that attach to the pelvis that are part of the core, some of the hip muscles, and some mobility in there as well. Some of it's going to be kind of subtle, so don't worry or don't fret that you're not making a big movement, a big volume of movement with it. We will later in the practice be leaning against the wall to do some of those pelvic movements. So make sure you have a space where you can lean your back, your shoulders, your butt against the wall. And if you don't have wall space, closing the door, making sure the door is latched all the way to lean against it will work for this as well. And if you need to modify, adapt, substitute it at any time during the practice, please do that. Nothing should be painful or uncomfortable. So those sensations are reasons to change the practice. Your fatigue level, what you've already done today might change what you do or how much you rest. So listen to some of those signals in your body as opposed to ignoring them as we sometimes do to try to push through. We are going to start on our backs. And we're starting in some stillness as we usually do. So whatever position feels comfortable to you here. And I'm going to be in this position for the next couple of minutes. So if it is helpful for you to close your eyes so that you can become more present in your body, the sensations of your body, feel free to do that. Begin to bring your focus to your breath. Feeling the air moving in and out of your nose, the belly and chest expanding and contracting. Maybe you even feel the back ribs pressing into the floor as you breathe in, relaxing as you breathe out. Breathing through the nose now, start to lengthen both the inhale and the exhale. Slowing down the breath, smoothing it out. That slow down, lengthened breath, communicating with the nervous system that this is a calm environment. This is a space and a time where you can slow down, be introspective, or interoceptive is really the correct word here, being able to feel what's happening in your body. Take the next few breaths, setting an intention for the practice today. Remembering why you've shown up. Is it about injury prevention? Is it about releasing tension, feeling better, recovery? Just because you enjoy it. So bring this reason to the front of your mind so that you don't lose it through the practice, that you stay attuned to this intention, this reason for being here, why you've set this time aside. So bring this thought to the front of your mind and breathe with intention. And we'll begin to move here. So we're starting with the knees bent and the feet flat. And as we sometimes do, start with a subtle movement of pelvic tilting, but we typically only do forward and backward pelvic tilting. We're going to try to move in all three planes of movement here. instead of just the forward and backward. So you might think of the back of your pelvis as a clock, and like an analog clock. And we're imagining the tailbone to be 6 o'clock. The top of the sacrum, the top of the pelvis at the very low back is 12 o'clock. Then I have to think about it that way. One hip is 9 o'clock and the other hip is 3 o'clock. So depending on which way you're looking at the clock here. So first we're going to rock between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So press the low back into the floor, tailbone tips up. So you're pressing into that 12 o'clock. And then move towards 6 o'clock. We press into the tailbone, the low back arches away from the floor. Go back and forth between those two. So this one should be a little bit familiar if you've done this class with me before. Press into 12 o'clock, tailbone up, and then press into 6 o'clock, tailbone pressing down. And the breath is exhale, 12 o'clock, low back flattens. Inhale, 6 o'clock, low back arching away from the floor. Do that a few more times to get the sense of that pelvis rocking forward and backward and feeling what muscles engage with this. Abdominals, the six-pack, your rectus abdominis, tilting you back to 12 o'clock. Low back muscles along the spine, tilting you into 6 o'clock. Then bringing this back into center. And now we're going to press into 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock here. So press a little bit into that 3 o'clock, and the 9 o'clock will kind of lift up a little bit and then come back to center. And then press into the other side, pressing into 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whichever one it is. The other side lifts, and then go back and forth. So this is really subtle. And you may not be moving very much, but you're tipping one side of that clock towards the floor, the 9 o'clock, and then tipping the 3 o'clock towards the floor. And that means the other side's tipping up. And you might start to feel this here in your abdominal muscles. Try not to push so much with the foot if you can, although you're probably gonna want to there. And we'll bring that back in through center and just take a moment here to relax. You might just gently rock the knees side to side. That's still that 3 and 9 o'clock here, but it's a little more passive to the muscles around the pelvis and the core. So 2 planes of motion there. Now, we're still thinking about the pelvis, the sacrum, those bowl-shaped bones on the back here as the clock. Or maybe think of it as a steering wheel, and we're going to be turning the clock. So it's like you hung that clock and it's a little bit crooked, so we got to twist it. So we're going to twist it one way and then twist it the other way. So I'm kind of pushing one sitting bone towards my heel, come back to center, push the other sitting bone towards the heel, come back to center. So you could inhale to lengthen through that side, pushing one sitting bone towards the heel, exhale to center, inhale, other sitting bone pushing towards the heel, exhale to center. And you could think about it as a steering wheel that you're just doing small little movements, or that clock that you hung and it's just not quite square, it's not quite right, and you're having to move it. So here we go, moving in all 3 planes of motion at the pelvis. This one probably a little bit more what you're doing in the boat to level it using your hips and your core in that pelvis. Bring it back in through center here and pull the knees in towards you. You could hug the shins or hold the backs of the thighs and just gently rock a little side to side. So even though those are subtle, I could really feel the muscles attaching to the pelvis, really from the core, the waist. I'm feeling most of that in the low back. And then we'll lower, actually keep your knees pulled in here. You could bring your arms out to the sides and just drop the knees over towards one side. If it feels good, you could stretch the top leg out across the room and then bend the knee rolling onto your back. and you do the other side. Drop the legs to that side. Maybe you kick that top foot out. Exhale onto the back in a little ball and just go side to side. And you may have to adjust if you're close to the wall or close to furniture at home. Coming on to your back again and coming back to the center of the mat. If you moved to make a little bit of space, we're coming into the half bridge, and I'm doing this a little differently how I normally do it. Normally we're working on stabilizing the hips and not letting one side drop. This time we're going to lower and lift the hips here. So half bridge, bend the knees, line the heels up with the sitting bones. Half, meaning I'm only going to lift halfway up. So I'm lifting my hips and my lower back only, as opposed to lifting that upper back up off the floor. And we're going to stay in the upright position, but lower one hip. So that hip drops down towards the floor, and then pull it back up to meet the other hip. We inhale, lower the other hip, and exhale, pull it back up to meet the other one. And alternating here side to side. And it's not a big movement, because this is just that rotation of the pelvis and a little bit of rotation of the lumbar spine, but we don't have a lot of movement there. So this drop and lift is not going to be big. We don't naturally have a lot of movement there. You might be feeling your glutes working, your core. If you don't have your knees bent very much, you might be feeling in your hamstrings. If you tend to cramp there, try to bend the knees a little bit more. Feels closer to the butt. Last one. And then lower on down from here. Walk the feet out a little bit. Shake out those legs. And then bring one ankle over the other knee. You're keeping this one foot down on the ground. The arms come out to the sides and a little bit more rotation. So I'm just going to gently rock the legs over towards one side, center, and then to the other side. And if you are tight in your low back, or those obliques were working a lot on those last few exercises, you might be kind of tight. So you could be a little more conservative than you would normally be in the windshield wipers here to see where you feel stretch, what feels like a good stretch, which feels like too much. Bring it back into center, switch legs, and just gently rocking side to side here. For me, this quickly gets into stretching my obliques, but it feels kind of good after what we just did. The oblique muscles, the two layers of abdominal muscles that run kind of on a diagonal here, both of them come down and attach on the top of the pelvis. So primary movers of that tipping side to side of the pelvis. Bring the legs back in through center. And then we're going to come up to a seated position. And we're sitting in this kind of side saddle position. So you can have your knees together, but you might want them a little further apart for the second movement, that we're going to do here. And for right now, we're going to be leaning away from the legs, so leaning on that hand. And if the wrist pressure doesn't feel good, you can always use a couple of yoga blocks to lean on here. So the free arm, we're going to sweep it across the legs and up overhead. So you stretch to the side body again, and then we sweep that arm down towards the floor and away. And again, we inhale, sweep across, up overhead, that side lengthening, exhale, bring it down. You can keep it grounded here or lift the hips with that movement. Push the hips forward and then lower. A couple more like this. Lower on down and pause. Now, the next part, I'm going to try to do the same thing, but without pushing with my arm. If your hips are tight or don't allow you to come into that upright position, stay leaning on the hand and just lifting and pushing forward. You could do that arm sweep here too. Or if you'd like to, you might be able to use the hands a little bit to help you push up and then lower back down, or the block beside you to help you push up and lower back down, or no hands. Inhale up, exhale lower. Couple more. Nice. Come on down. Swivel the feet around to the other side. So the first part here, we're leaning away from the legs. Hips stay grounded. Free arm, we sweep it across the legs, up overhead, and then we sweep it down across the legs and away. The breath is inhale, sweep up overhead, exhale, lower the arm. Maybe you add that hip lift, right? But it's optional. This could feel really nice because it starts to open up the hip flexors on that leg furthest away from you. And you start to engage your glutes a little bit here with this. So you could stay with that, leaning on the hand. You don't have to add the more challenging strength version of this. But a half step to it would be to put a block under one or both hands and lift the hips up and forward and then lower. Or without the hands, inhale up, exhale lower. And depending on what's happening at the hip joints or some of the tension and the muscles around it, that might be limiting you as opposed to strength. Come on down here on the next one. Lean back, bring the legs forward, just shaking out the legs here. And we're making our way up to hands and knees. And if you're on that harder surface or your knees are a little sensitive, you might want that blanket or folded up towel to pad the knees. From this tabletop where we have our knees under the hips, wrist under shoulders, and another option here, because sometimes people don't have that 90-degree bend at the wrist, or it's a painful area, or they got arthritis in the base of the thumb. You could be on loose fist instead of the flat palm, or on the forearms here. Cat and cow, but we initiate the movement of the spine with the tailbone. So the tailbone is the base of the sacrum. The sacrum is a triangular bone at the bottom of the spine. That's the back part of the pelvis. So with the tailbone, we drop it down first and then round through the lower back. We round through the middle back, then the upper back, and tuck the chin at the end of the movement. And then use the tailbone to initiate getting out of this. Tailbone tips up, belly towards floor, chest forward, lift the head at the end. So tailbone drops, we round through the spine, rolling through one vertebra at a time. Head tilts under at the last, and then we tip the tailbone up, lower the belly, chest forward, head lift. So it's a sequential movement, starting with the tailbone. We exhale as we round through the back, arching it towards the ceiling. And then we inhale as we tip the tailbone up and arch the spine towards the floor. And a few more here. Your next inhale, bringing that spine back into this neutral tabletop position. And we're stretching one foot back with the toes tucked under the knees off the floor. And we're doing a little mobility here for the foot, the ankle, the toes. So we're pressing the heel back so you feel a calf stretch, and then shift forward, bending through the toe joints. Maybe you feel that stretch through the arch of the foot. Exhale to shift back. Inhale to shift forward, and do a few more here. I've got a lot of tightness, tension, and an Achilles tendon that I am working on healing. So I'm being gentle as I press my heel back. Lower that knee, switch sides. My right Achilles is healthier, so I can press a little bit more through there, but my right big toe is a little stiffer, so I'm being careful with my shift forward in that toe bend. Ankle and toe mobility, really important in rowing in the catch position, right? So being able to bend through the ankle as you come into the catch, and as the heel lifts, the toe necessitating that toe to be able to bend as well to come into that smaller position in the catch. All right, lowering that knee back down here to the floor. And we're getting ready for down dog. If down dog is a challenging pose for you, you could keep going with that toe rock. You could come into a puppy pose, which is a kneeling down dog, right? So that's knees under hips, forehead down. You could reach forward. You can even work a little bit on that shoulder strength to kind of lift the head for it. Or the down dog, hands forward to shoulders a bit, fingers spread, lift those hips up and back. Find that length in the spine. So if you're tight in the backs of the legs, you might need to bend the knees a little bit to reach the sitting bones up and back. And because of that Achilles, I'm going to keep my knees a little bent or a lap bent. You can also pedal the feet here, meaning bend one knee, straighten the other. You could lift the heels and lower. You could shake that head out. This is another good opportunity for mobility at the ankles, the toes, and also finding that length in the spine and tipping that tailbone, those sitting bones, all part of the pelvis, up towards the ceiling so the spine lengthens. Settle here in that down dog. Looking forward, we're stepping the left foot to the outside of the left hand. So it might be off of your mat here, and you might need to help it there. That right knee lowers, left hand helping it forward. We're all going to lower the back knee. And here's where I like to use some blocks under my hands on the inside of that front foot. So my left foot, the heel is on the mat, my toes are turned out a little bit. And if you're really close together, back knee and heel, maybe wiggle that front foot forward or slide the back knee back a little bit. See if you can let the hips sink down and forward. At the same time, you press into the hands to reach the top of the head up towards the ceiling. So think about this long arcing line from that back knee to the top of the head. It's not a straight line. There's not a right angle here with the butt back, but a kind of curving line here, sort of a parabola, if I'm remembering my math. Neck is really long. You could stay with this or lift that back knee. And it's not that the second version of this is a progression. It's just a different sensation of stretching the hip flexors of the right leg, maybe hamstrings of the left or the inner thigh. Stay long through the neck. And lowering the hands to the floor here, stepping this back into a plank. And lower both knees. Keep that core tight and exhale, lower on down to the ground. Elbows point towards your feet. Roll the shoulder blades towards the spine and the back waist to lift the head and chest. Very little pushing with the hands here, almost like a locust pose. Lower down on the exhale. I'm going to do a couple more cobras. That was low. You could do higher, as I'll do on the second two. Shoulder blades towards spine, back waist, lift head, chest. There's low cobra. Maybe you lift those lower ribs. Exhale, lower. One more. Shoulder blades back, down towards the waist. Lift head, chest. Maybe the ribs, maybe that lower belly. Tuck your toes. Now use your lower abdominals to push the hips up and back, finding that down dog. Or maybe you go into that puppy pose from here. Maybe a few more moments of pedaling the feet, rising up on the toes. Again, I'm modeling how to take care of your left Achilles if that's a problem here. And then settle in the down dog, looking forward, right foot, stepping to the outside of that right hand, lowering the back knee, help it get there. There's no rush. You want a good bit of space between that back knee and that front foot. So if you need to wiggle that front foot forward here, to allow the hips to sink down and forward. At the same time, the top of the head is reaching up towards the ceiling. I need this tall side of the blocks here because some tension that I have in my hip flexors. And I'm longer waisted and shorter arm, but there might be other positions. Could be loose fists down here. Maybe you don't need the blocks. You're coming down onto the floor with this. I like this ability to reach the top of my head out up and grow long through my spine. Take another breath or two here as we start to open through this left hip flexor, the right hamstrings, right inner thigh, maybe different for all of us. And then we'll toe heel that right foot into center onto your mat again. Blocks on either side, hands on either side, back knee up. Ooh, I forgot to offer that one. Hopefully you got the back knee up if you wanted that version for your lizard. If not, come back to it. Take a few breaths. Sorry, I forgot to offer that here. And then bring that foot into center. And we're stepping the back foot to the front foot. Find a forward fold here. So a few options, that ragdoll where the knees are bent and the upper body drapes over lower body. Or this one, if you're really tight through the hamstrings, if there's some stuff in your spine that you want to be careful of, bone density issues, herniated disc, it could be this one, feet wide, butt back, your forearms are on your thighs. And you could sway a little bit with this. Forward, back, side to side. The ragdoll version, you have a few more options. Maybe hold elbows or backs of hands on the floor, the yoga block, shake the head out. Bring that weight shift into center, knees bent, look forward. Inhale, rise up to stand, reaching up. And exhale, hands to prayer here at your heart. Let that arms go, shake out your legs a little bit, roll the shoulders, moving that blanket off of the mat to make space so you don't trip on that. And just continuing a little bit of warm up for the whole body. Now that we're in this upright position, I'll have you stand with your feet a little wider than shoulder distance apart. Toes are turned out. We're coming into a goddess pose, or this wide-legged squat, or some people call it a horse pose, horse stance. We're going to bend through the knees, bend through the hips, bring the weight into your heels, and find this length in the spine and the levelness of the pelvis. So often here, our pelvis will be kind of tipped forward and the tailbone sticking out. See if you, instead of tucking under here, bring that tailbone straight on towards the floor. So you kind of level that clock if you're still thinking about that clock here on the back of the pelvis. And then from here, straighten the legs. Inhale, reach the arms up. As you exhale, sit back, maybe a little forward lean as you cross the arms. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, sit back, arms come down. You could continue that breath through the nose. Inhale and exhale. Sometimes it feels good to inhale through the nose here. Open the mouth, let out a big exhale. Couple more. All right, come on up. Check out the arms, bring those legs in here a little bit. We're going to continue this theme with movement of the pelvis, and we're keeping our upper body in a, well, actually the first part, the upper body stable, the second part, the lower body stable. So you'll get to feel that difference. So starting here at the front of the mat, take a big to medium step back with that left foot and pivot the heel down. We're opening up here and straightening the front leg. So my hips are angled out. My pelvis is angled out here towards the left. My front heel is roughly lined up with the arch of my back foot. Preparing for a triangle pose here. We'll bring those arms forward and back. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. And then from here, the upper body stays in this position, and we're going to shift the hips back. So my left hip is kind of shifting back, and then I'm shifting my hips forward towards the front leg. So inhale, shift the hips back. Exhale, shift the hips forward. Relax the shoulders. Do that a couple more times. Shifting hips back, shifting hips forward. There's a very subtle weight shift in the feet, but not so much. Pretty even shift both ways. And then find this pelvis here right in the middle. And then from here, we shift the torso forward and bring that front hand down somewhere on the leg, the thigh or the shin. Top arm could come up, the shoulder, the neck doesn't like it. That top hand could be on the hip here. One more option would be with this bottom hand, if you want a little bit more core work, the back of the hand on the inner thigh, wherever that bottom hand is, use it to help you open that chest a little bit more here towards that left side. Take another breath. Press down through the big toe knuckles of the feet. Spread the toes. Strong legs, inhale, rise up. Release the arms, swing them out here again. And we're coming into this warrior two, so the front knee bending. Okay, so knee over ankle or somewhere in line with it. And find that length in the spine. So again, that tailbone often wants to tip back. We're gonna level the pelvis, bring the tailbone down towards the earth, top of the head up towards the sky. Reaching those arms forward and back again, shoulders away from the ears. Now lower body stays stable and we shift the rib cage over the front leg, and then we shift the ribs back over the pelvis. So we inhale, ribs shift forward, exhale, shift them over the pelvis. Do that a couple more times. We're using the same muscles, but we're anchoring which part is stable and which part is moving has changed. Shift forward, pause, back hand to the hip, either front hand to the thigh or forearm to the thigh. Leverage of the arm against the leg to open that chest a little bit more. Staying with this in the side ankle, or reach this arm up and forward. So extended side angle, where we lengthen from the outside of the left foot through the fingertips of the left hand, palm down, thumb back. That might help you. That palm down, thumb back might help you pull the shoulder away from the ear a little bit. Strong legs, inhale, rise up. Step to the front of the mat. Shake out your legs, roll the shoulders. I'm going to turn around so that my back doesn't end up to you, but you stay at the front of your mat as we do the other side. It'll be that right foot back this time. Heel pivots down, right toes point out towards the right edge of the mat, front knee bent, left toes towards the front of the mat. And again, we'll straighten that front leg, find that length in the spine, arms reaching forward and back. So upper body stays stable. So we're not shifting here rib cage or shoulders, but we're shifting the hips back and then shift them forward. Inhale, hip shift back. Exhale to shift forward. It's a small movement. Don't force it, right? Especially if you've got some tightness, tension in your hips or the inner thigh muscles. And then I'd like you to find that middle position where the pelvis isn't shifted back or forward, that tailbone lengthens down towards the earth. And then we shift the ribs forward, front hand to the leg, top arm could be up or maybe it's on the hip. That bottom hand could be on inner leg to help you open up and a little bit more core oblique strength here. Remember, the obliques attached to the top of the pelvis. You could bring that arm up, neck long. Press into the underside of the big toe knuckles, that area right behind the big toe, to keep working on strength and stability. Strong legs, we inhale, rise up. Bend the front knee this time, arms reaching out, shoulders away from the ears. Now the lower body and the pelvis stays stable, so it's not shifting back and forward, but we shift the ribs over the front leg and then shift the ribs over the pelvis again. Inhale, shift forward. Exhale, shift back. A couple more here. Maybe that gaze is over the front hand. Next time you shift forward, pause, back into the hip, palm or forearm to the thigh, leverage with the arm against the leg to open up. You could stay with the hand on the hip or extended side angle. Arm comes overhead, palm down, thumb back. Maybe that right shoulder can pull away from the ear a little bit. Take a couple more breaths. Strong legs, inhale, rise up. Step the back foot to the front foot. Shake out those legs, walk it off, shake out your arms here if you'd like. So we're gonna come over to the wall and we're backing up to the wall or that closed door. So come so that your feet are a foot or so out. You might need to adjust this here. My heels are about a foot out from the wall. My back of my pelvis is on the wall. My shoulders are on the wall here. And then put a little bend in the knees, a tiny bend in the knees. It's a tiniest of wall sits here, or like a wall squat happening. Remember that clock that we had on the back of the pelvis here on the floor. So we're going to do the same thing we did lying down. It might feel a little bit different. You probably have a bigger space between the wall and the low back here. So remember, the tailbone is 6 o'clock. The top of the sacrum or kind of low back is 12 o'clock. So I'm going to press 12 o'clock into the wall. Your tailbone is 6 o'clock, tips away from it, and then do the opposite. Press 6 o'clock into the wall. So tailbone pushes into the wall, the low back pulls away from the wall. Exhale, press 12 o'clock into the wall. Inhale, press 6 o'clock into the wall. Do that a few more times. Go between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. It's the forward and backward pelvic tilt. So I'm talking about tailbone, I'm talking about the sacrum, but the whole pelvis is moving forward and backward here. All right, now find neutral. So you're partway between 12 and 6 o'clock. And now we're going to press 3 o'clock into the wall. 9 o'clock might pull away from the wall. Come back to center and then press 9 o'clock into the wall. 3 o'clock pulls away from the wall. And then go back and forth here. So exhale to press 3 or 9 into the wall. Inhale to center. And as you press one side in, the opposite knee might come a little forward. Right? Because now we're tipping that pelvis. We're rocking it side to side. Again, very subtle. You might be feeling your legs a little bit here. Come back through center. Keep it there in between 12 and 6 and also in between 3 and 9. And now it's like that clock on the wall is not straight. We're gonna kind of tilt it one way. Now we overcorrect it and then we tilt it the other. So it's kind of a hip hike on one side, a hip lowering on the other. The breath with this, just as long as you're not holding your breath, is where it's at. And you might be feeling those oblique muscles working here. If you're like me, your quads are like, oh, okay, time for a break. All right, come back up and press away from the wall. Shake out those legs, roll the shoulders. And then we are coming on down. Actually, we're going to do one more here balance-wise, and I won't make you do too much, but what I'd like you to see is the levelness of the pelvis is very important, and the strength to be able to level the pelvis is very important in single leg standing. If you'd like to have the hand on the wall or step off your mat, feel free to do this as we come into a version of tree pose. So bring a foot forward, spread those toes, shifting your weight onto it. Come into the kickstand version first. So toes are down, heel is just above the ankle. And then pause here. So without sort of intention, often that standing leg hip will sink out to the side. So that means the opposite side of the pelvis drops down. And now all our kind of points are out of line as opposed to being stacked over each other. So think about the tailbone, 6 o'clock, lengthening towards the floor, and the top of the head kind of up above 12 o'clock, lengthening towards the ceiling. And notice how that leveled my pelvis. You could stay here, toes down. You could bring that foot up somewhere on the leg. Maybe you pull it to the inner thigh. Think about pressing the foot and leg in towards each other because that'll keep that hip from sinking out towards the side. Forgot to say about focusing the gaze here in a non-moving spot. Hands on the hips, or maybe hands in prayer where you're gently pressing the pads of the fingers in towards each other, in towards midline, again, so that everything stacks right on top of each other. Going to help with balance. All right, let that go. Shake it out. Roll the shoulders. Other side, foot forward, spread the toes. Shift your weight onto it. Come into that kickstand version first. Notice you have a tendency for that hip to sink out to the side. And you could think, okay, pull the hips in, shoulders over hips, head over shoulders. But if you just think tailbone down, top of the head up, things come into alignment, stacked joints over joints. You could stay here, toes down, or bring the foot up. No, you could always put that foot down. You could bring it up higher. Press the foot and leg together. Right, again, so this force coming towards midline. Maybe your hands come together in prayer. You could gently press the pads of your fingers together. Maybe the heels of your palms together. Get taller even here, neck longer. Breathe. Let this go. Shake it out, roll the shoulders. Now we're gonna head down to the floor. Coming into a seated position, I am getting ready to do a seated figure four or seated pigeon pose here. We will be leaning back on our hands. If this doesn't feel good to your back, it doesn't feel good on your wrists or shoulders, feel free to come on your back and do your version of that reclined reclined pigeon here. So I'm going to start with my legs straight, leaning back on the hands, cross one ankle over the other knee. And then we're sliding that other foot in towards us just until we feel some stretch here on the buttocks, outer hip. And then notice did your back kind of come into that C letter C here. See if you can kind of lift that breastbone up towards the shin and lengthen out through the neck. Take a few breaths. You can always wiggle that foot away if it got too intense as you straightened the spine or lifted the chest. This is sort of a nice portable version of this stretch. We're doing it here on the ground, but you can also do this on a chair or steps. So sometimes after a walk, I will sit on my steps going into the house and I'll be like on the second step and do this, and I can kind of lean forward or hinge forward from my hips to get that stretch, that pigeon stretch. So I'm going to keep the ankle crossed, but straighten out the other leg. And then that bent knee is going to come up here towards the ceiling. Now, I'm a little tight through my hips. If I put a folded blanket underneath my sitting bones here, it really starts to tip my pelvis forward and takes that C curve, that kind of rounded or shrimp part of the spine out of it. So I'm going to hold that bent knee with my opposite elbow. It's in the crook of my elbow here. The other hand behind me on the floor. Get really tall. And then we're twisting the chest, shoulders, the gaze towards the bent leg side. And the pulling in with the arm is going to give you maybe a little bit more outer hip stretch. This is a seated version of a twist. You could always go on your back and do a reclined version of twist. Breathe. You might feel the belly expand against the thigh on the inhale. Pull away on the exhale, or at least make a little more space. Unwind here, both legs out. You can kind of shake out your thighs. You can use your hands just to, sometimes I just kind of jiggle my thighs and those hip flexors there to get them to let go a little bit. You could keep the blanket there or take it out as we do that. Figure for the pigeon on the other side. So ankle over knee, slide that straightened leg in towards you just until you feel that stretch in the buttocks, outer hip, Remember, you can always do this in the recline, lying on your back version. And then notice, did your back round? Did it form this letter C? Lift that breastbone towards the shin, neck long. Take a few breaths. We are stretching muscles on the back of the pelvis. The glute maximus is there. Underneath the gluteus maximus is the piriformis. And there are three other little rotators underneath that or below that, closer to the sitting bone. So kind of different angles of this, you're going to feel stretch in different places. And then keep the ankle crossed over, but straighten the other leg. Bring the sole of that bent leg foot down, and then come into more of an upright position. We hug that knee in with the opposite elbow, other hand behind you on the floor. And the job of that arm is to lengthen the spine, top of the head reaching up. Gentle, don't crank it around. Twist of the chest, the shoulders, the gaze towards the bent leg side. Can you let the shoulders come away from the ears? Gently hug in with the crook of that elbow. Then you're going to start, the stretch might be a little different here on the outer hip into the gluteus medius muscle, which is up a little higher at the top of the pelvis and comes around and attaches to the outer hip bone, which is not your hip joint. It's actually a bony prominence on your thigh, on your femur. And that is the main muscle that keeps the hips level. That glute medius is the one that keeps the hips level in single leg standing. Right, unwind here, legs out, shake out your legs, maybe the hands kind of jiggle or massage in that area, if anything kind of tighten up around there. We're coming back into that side saddle position here. So feet swept off to the side. We're leaning away from the legs. I'm going to do the quad stretch from here. If you don't like this version or if it feels tweaking on your knee, do a different version of the quad stretch. But bending that foot furthest away or bending that knee furthest away, reaching back up a hand. You could already be feeling enough quad stretch here, or a little more stretch, come down on your forearm. A little more stretch would be to slide the thigh back. And remember that more is not always better in probably almost every aspect of your body, but certainly in stretching. Sensation of stretch on this thigh, front of the thigh, should be mild to moderate as opposed to intense, aggressive, or certainly not painful, because that will tend to backfire and make you tighten up more. Release this here, swivel the feet around to the other side, leaning away from the legs, pull that heel towards your butt, holding on. You don't want that foot to go up towards the ceiling, so think heel towards the sitting bone so that you don't twist here through the hip or the knee. This could be enough already, or come down to your forearm, or slide that thigh back. Many variations of the quad stretch. This is one I like, and I like variety. So I like to change it up when I can. Or offer you something that might be novel and feels different in your body. We're letting this go and coming onto your back. Coming into a bridge pose. Now, if you're like, Laura, I've had enough and I'm ready for something more restorative, and we might all do this one on the second one. It could be that supported bridge where you have the block under the sacrum. And we've been talking about the sacrum a lot. So the 6 o'clock is the tailbone, right? 12 o'clock is the top of the sacrum. We're somewhere in between, but we're not on the low back. We're not on the vertebrae there. So that's an option. You could go there, or active bridge. Line the heels up with the sitting bones, arms by the sides, lift your hips and back. Once you're up, tuck the shoulders in underneath and press those arms into the floor. see if you can feel those glutes a little bit, give you that extra lift. We've been using the back of the pelvis muscles, even sides of the pelvis muscles here quite a bit, as well as the core that attach to the pelvis, core musculature. Not so much the pelvic floor today, but all right, arms out from underneath you, coming down into your back. You could gently rock those knees side to side, that windshield wiper movement. Now I'm going to take us all into that supported bridge. So if you went there first, you get double supported bridge. So I'm using the block, but this could be folded blanket. A foam roller works really well for this too, just not the knobby kind, but that flat foam roller in that spot on the sacrum. Once you're here, remind the buttocks, the back muscles to relax. We've been using them a lot to control that pelvic movement, the glutes, those rotator muscles underneath there, the low back muscles, and tipping that pelvis back and forward. Now the pelvis is supported, so we do not have to engage in those muscles, but sometimes our brain keeps saying, engage, engage, lift, hold. Can you tell those muscles, hey, it's okay, it's your turn to rest? You might stay right here. This could feel really good. Or the legs up, pull the knees in, reach the feet up towards the ceiling, and know that you might need to adjust here. Sometimes it kind of slides a little too far down. Notice that I don't have my knees all the way straight because then my quads and my hip flexors are having to work really hard to kind of counteract some of my hamstring tightness. So I've let the knees bend and my heels, my ankles are kind of stacked over my hip joints here so that I don't have to work hard to pull it one way or the other. And then if you'd like to add a little movement here, maybe circling the ankles, pointing and flexing the feet. Maybe you straighten one knee and bend the other. A little pull when you straighten that leg. It's a little pull on the hamstrings. Hamstrings are 3 muscles on the back of the thigh. They all commonly attach to your sitting bone on each side. The sitting bone is part of the pelvis, kind of the bottom part of the ring. Pull this back into whatever position. Maybe just shake out those legs a little bit, like they're kind of a wet dog shaking off. And then lower the feet. Take that block out from underneath you. Come on down. Let's come into a happy baby. So we pull the knees in towards us, but bring them out wider than the hips. And options here would be to hold the backs of the thighs. It's relaxed happy baby. Sometimes that's the best one. Or hold the ankles or feet or big toes. You could gently rock side to side. This position is a relaxed position for the pelvic floor. So these muscles we haven't really talked about, but they're actually pretty important because they hold all your lower abdominal organs in your body and stabilize the pelvis from underneath. Here they get to rest. They have been working even though we haven't called them out. They've been working this whole time. Here they get to rest. Decide if there's something you'd like to do before Shavasana, before relaxation. Maybe a different twist here, hip stretch. And think about your Shavasana position. I'm going to come into that legs up the wall with a folded blanket underneath my hips. That again is going to help relax my pelvic floor muscles and kind of take all of the work off of them, as well as a very lovely recovery position for my legs because I did a strength workout right before class. So this is going to be helpful in my recovery. And I've just slid that folded blanket under my hips. It could be a pillow from the couch too. But you might have your own favorite position here. Legs could be straight up, ankles crossed, straddle, maybe even a butterfly position. Once you found your spot you'd like to rest in, you can take an inhale through the nose, open the mouth, let out a sigh, easy. And again, let the body rest for the next few minutes. Start to deepen your breath. Invite some gentle, small movements at the toes and fingers, the ankles, the wrist, maybe the bigger joints and closer to the torso. If it feels good, you're on your back, you could reach your arms overhead and inhale, lengthen out through the whole body. Exhale, let it go, bending the knees to roll to your side. Pause for a moment here. Support the head with the arm. Take this moment before we sit up, appreciating your body, your breath, your health, your yoga practice. Press yourself up to a seated position. Thank you all for being here, sharing your practice and energy this evening. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste.